Hey guys, I thought I would kind of talk a little bit about 3ds Max as a modeling program um, in relation to maybe some other programs, as well as maybe talk a little bit about some of the tools that I like to use in 3ds Max. So I'm going to open up a project here that loads up that I have been working on. It's kind of a more simple project. Nothing too serious. But anyway, I kind of wanted to do a bit of an overview of the program, talk about some really important things that you might need to know as someone who's interested in buying this program. So, kind of as a general overview of the HUD, it has 4 window views, and these are perspective views, and I'll show you what that looks like. If I draw a shape, you can see, it doesn't really matter if I extrude it or not, but you can see that it looks different on every window. It has a different angled view, and if I choose to alter any window view independently, it does not have an effect on the other window views. So each of these is a separate camera that has a different effect on how to view an object. And you'll find yourself constantly pulling back to this view, which you can do by pressing Alt-W, which will pull you into a view that you have selected, and will pull you out of a view that you are already in. And if you select another view, you can go into that view, and you can see that I'm now in the top, this top-down view as opposed to this top-down view. I prefer to use this bottom right-hand view because it's automatically angled and it tends to give you the best perspective when creating a 3D shape from a two-dimensional object. But once you get into a complex shape, you might find that this doesn't really cut it for you. So say you have a shape that's, fairly large, and it's kind of tall, and it's got all these different, it's got this huge area, so it's very difficult to see on both sides. So you might find yourself looking at it from different sides. And if you see this wireframe here, you can toggle this on by pressing F4 on your keyboard, and this will give you a view of all the polygons that are within the structure. So if I select the structure and hit convert to editable poly, I can see a little bit of information about this particular extruded shape itself. And if I want to, I can edit it on for several different ways. I can edit the actual points where the polygons intersect, or the vertexes. I'll show you what that looks like. So I can drag them up, and this brings the corresponding mass that is similar to that vertex with it. I'm just going to lay that there so you can see what that does. I can manipulate an edge, and an edge is literally just the side of a polygon. I'll actually bring this out so you can kind of see what it's doing. So some of these things are a little bit more subtle than others. Some are a little bit more stark in contrast, but all of them have their reasonable effects when you look at trying to mold a shape. And 3ds Max, being kind of an animation-based program, is really a program that's best for molding objects into the shapes that you want. I wouldn't say it's a cutting and pasting type of program, maybe a little bit more like some of your other 3D print make programs. And another way you can edit is you can edit via the border. And editing via the border can be a little bit tricky. Sometimes it's difficult to actually define what the border is on certain objects. So sometimes it finds it difficult to select borders. You can also edit by polygons themselves, and that's literally just any shape that you choose to edit. And you can edit multiple shapes as well by using your control key and then clicking multiple shapes. Or you can additionally hold down the shift key and select a similar set of shapes, and that can be either horizontally or vertically. And if you want to select more shapes, and this rule also applies to the other functions, the vertex, the edge, and the border, it applies to all of these functions. You can go down to when you select something and say, like, oh, this is taking me forever, I don't want to do this. Well, if you select multi and you hit control, and I tend to hit control, you can select any shapes that your mouse goes over. Okay, and then when you click, left click, it will have all those shapes selected. Now, of course, you might want to go back to the different views, and you can see here where on this view I'm looking full frontal at the area I selected, whereas in this view I'm looking at it from the side. At this view I'm looking at it from the top with a little bit of a turn, and from this particular view I'm looking at it as well as from the side, but I'm looking at it from the opposite side as this view. So that's something that's really important about this program, is how you lay out your shapes. Another really important thing that maybe not a lot of people have brought up in videos that I kind of wanted to discuss a little bit is adding additional splicing lines to your polygons or to your shapes. And what this does is it gives you more maneuverability, so I can edit more surfaces and therefore get a very smooth texture as opposed to something that looks kind of low poly, it's very bulky and rough. So in order to add more lines, areas that I can manipulate, I will go under the modeling tab, and then I will go to edit, and I will go to Swift Loop. And it says place edges on loops by clicking turn on, then click anywhere to insert an edge. So literally what this does is it allows you to insert edges or lines that will represent edges. Basically they're manipulatable lines, and you can insert them anywhere that you want. You can see that they're shown by their vertexes initially. So I just kind of put some more in here because I wanted to kind of show you why it's important to do this. Now remember also when you're done with a tool that Escape lets you out of certain tools, and certain tools it seems to not. So I would always just remember to go back to the select key if you want to alter something without making a serious change, because what you might end up doing, and I've done this quite a few times, is added extra lines in the places I'm actually trying to edit, and I have to zoom in quite far to see those extra lines. So anyway, I've added some more lines, and now if I choose to look at, if I look at this now, one important thing that you'll see is there are significantly more polygons in these in this cylinder. So I think it's important to remember how many polygons you think you're going to need to work on something. Of course, you can always go back and change it, but it's always, to me, it's always good to add more polygons than less, depending on how complex the shape is. Typically, the more rounded you expect the shape to be, the more polygons you'll want to add that will circulate the circumference of the object. So, and in another video, I'm going to talk a little bit about some push-pull techniques that you should use, and we'll talk a little bit about extruding, beveling, we'll talk about insetting and all the wonderful things you can do with that, outlining, flipping objects, so just some other shape effects that you can do that are really simple that might actually benefit you a lot more than you might think. Okay, so yeah, if you want to, just check out the next video, and I will talk to you guys later.